Morning, everyone. Welcome to Prairie Grove Christian Church. It's good to see all of you here today, your bright and smiling faces. We've got a couple of announcements this morning. We have the First Step class, June 12th. It's next Sunday. If you're new to the church, if you want to learn more about the church, meet some of the staff, I would suggest that's one of the best ways to get involved and find out what you can do and what you can be a part of here at Prairie Grove Christian. We have a lot of stuff going on camp-wise. All the youth camps are going on this summer, or this month actually. VBS starts next month, but registration is open. It's always super fun, and the kids love it. The registration is open for both the kids and volunteers, and there's sharks. There's going to be all sorts of, whoa, hey! There's some cool stuff going on, and it's going to be fun. Kids love it, and I would definitely suggest if you got kids, grandkids, sign them up. I've been a part of it for many years, and it's always my favorite part of the year. So definitely sign them up for that. If you would, let's go ahead and stand up. We're going to worship here in just a second. If you want to worship with us, that'd be awesome. We worship the God who was. We worship the God who is. We worship the God who evermore will be. As he opened the prison doors, he parted the raging sea. My God, he holds the victory. Yeah. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We shout out your praise. We sing to the God who heals. We sing to the God who saves. We sing to the God who always makes a way. 'Cause he hung upon that cross and he rose up from that grave. My God, still rolling stones away. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place, and we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. We were the beggars, and now we're royalty. And we were the prisoners, and now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by his grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. Sing it out with me, church. We were the beggars, now we're royalty. Yeah, we were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by his grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. Come on, sing it. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in this house. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet. We're gonna shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. We shout. washes white as snow. I believe that the power of the gospel still makes the broken whole. I believe that the curse of sin was broken when they rolled away that stone. I believe, I believe, I believe. As I bow before you, Lord, I will rise in confidence. I will see your goodness, Lord, in the land I'm living in. And no matter where I go, and no matter where I've been, I will see your goodness, Lord, in the land I'm living in. I believe that the walls will stop falling when we fall down on our knees. I believe that the lame will go walking, the blind are gonna see. I believe that the gates will tremble when the church begins to sing. I believe, I believe, I believe. As I bow before you, Lord, I will rise in confidence. I will see your goodness, Lord, in the land I'm living in. And no matter where I go, and no matter where I've been, I will see your goodness, Lord, in the land I'm living in. Sing it to the daughters, sing it to the sons, to every generation. Look at what the Lord has done. Sing it to the darkness, that the light has come. Sing it to the nations. Look at what the Lord has done. Sing it to the daughters, sing it to the sons, to every generation. Look at what the Lord has done. Sing it to the darkness, that the light has come. Sing it to the nations. Look at what the Lord has done. Look at what the Lord has done. As I bow before you, Lord, I will rise in confidence. I will see your goodness, Lord, in the land I'm living in. And no matter where I go, and no matter where I've been, I will see your goodness, Lord, in the land I'm living in. As I bow before you, Lord, I will rise in confidence. I will see your goodness, Lord, in the land I'm living in. And no matter where I go, Thanks for singing, church. You guys can have a seat. And as you came in, you may have grabbed some communion elements. If you'll go ahead and start opening those up. So, this series that we're in, I think is one of my favorite ones so far, going through the Sermon on the Mount. One of the things I've told people in the past, and one of the things I learned early on when I wasn't a Christian, and someone told me a long time ago, was even if you just look at Jesus and what he says to people, just read the words in red, it will make you want to be like him. He has great things to say and great advice and sage wisdom from our Heavenly Father that he was sent to share with all of us. And hearing Vance and Matt go through some of it so far, I've never wanted to murder anybody, but I mean, still parts of that sermon were good and very good advice on ways to treat others, how to deal with everyday life. And I love that, you can sit and read the Bible, and sometimes you read through it and you have to reread it and reread it. But to have these guys come up and help explain in layman's terms and to connect that with our everyday actions and our everyday life, for me, it's a pretty big deal. And it has been over the years, because it can be confusing. When you're reading it alone, you don't have someone to help through it. But I know today we're going to be talking about anger, and so I'm looking forward to hearing what Matt has to say about that, because if you've ever been a child, which you have, I'm sure every one of you, you've been angry. And if you've ever had to drive on Highway 49, you've been angry. And then there are many of us that, there's many of us that struggle with anger, that hide it well, but you struggle on a personal level. I've read a lot of different things that people talk about on blogs and different things about how they struggle with that, and they don't know how to share it, and they don't know how to deal with it. And I think this is going to be a great sermon today, especially brought by Matt today. He always has a special way of bringing things that really connect to me, that I enjoy. All that being said, there's the one man that came down to show us and to share with us and to prove to us that no matter what happens and no matter what we do on our day-to-day lives, and no matter how many errors and mistakes and sins that we make, that we're forgiven. The night before he died, he broke the bread and he passed it around to the disciples. And if you would, take a moment and let's take the bread together. That same night, he also passed that wine around and told everybody, hold on. This is his blood shed. It will be poured out. It's a big deal, and we pass over it a lot of times, and we glaze through it. But it's important. The beating and the brutality that he went through for us, and for all the stupid mistakes we make, and all the dumb things we don't want to do but we still do, he's forgiven that. And he's here to prove to us by this symbol. So if you would, let's take the juice. And as you're able, let's continue to worship, stand, and sing.
For your mercy never are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God.
Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for the things you've given us, for the moments we're able to share together here in this house with you, for the feeling of the Spirit rushing through this house, and to feel this on our souls, and to have this moment in every Sunday where we can come together with like-minded folks and just know that you're going to be here. We get to hear your message, and we get to rest in your word. We're so busy thinking about all the things we have to do day to day that it's so good to come here and be still and just feel you here with us. So we're thankful for these moments. We thank you for this day. We're thankful for all the things you've done in our lives, all the things you're doing currently, and everything that you have in store for our future. We thank you so much. It's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
So a couple years ago, I think it was 2019, I went and did a morning hunt in October on my own dirt. And I normally don't do that. We don't own a ton of timber. I try to leave it alone for my daughter to hunt on. But my in-laws were in town, and so I didn't want to travel too far away from the house. We had plans that day, and so I was hunting a morning hunt, October, my own dirt. And I'm doing what any typical ADHD-ridden person does when they're trying to focus on something for that long period of time, which is I was playing on my phone, just being honest, total transparency. And I remember specifically my wife had texted me while I'm in the woods hunting that there was a coot on the pond. And some of you are nodding, and I'm like, Is this like one of those jokes like where I say, what's a coot? And then they say something funny back? Like, are you trying to like pull? I'd never heard of a coot in my life. And all I could think of was cooties, like from elementary school. Like she's pulling my leg. And so I'm Googling. She's like, no, it's like a duck, but it's not a duck. And so I'm in the woods and I'm Googling on my phone, what's a coot? And it pops up a picture of this black looking duck. It might as well be a duck for all I care. And while I'm looking at my phone, I see movement out of the corner of my eye. And I look up and this little buck had snuck in on me. And I am not a trophy hunter by any means. I'm not one of those people like, it's got to be 17 and a half years old and it's got to be at least 170-inch deer if I'm going to shoot it. Most of you, what I just said was gibberish. It might as well have been Greek. You don't know what that even means, but some of you in here are familiar with hunting like, yeah, that's ridiculous. But I'm not a trophy hunter, right? But I do try to pass bucks that are 2.5 years old and younger because, I mean, it's just logical. If you shoot all the deer before they reach 3.5 years old, you're not going to have any mature deer in your area and on your property. And so I remember first glance when I see this thing, he's feeding out on acorns, he's just standing there. It's a young deer. His belly didn't sag. You know, sometimes as we get old, our bellies sag, right, guys? His belly wasn't sagging, it just swept straight up. You could see, a lot of times you can judge their age by looking at, if you can see a lot of their front shoulder elbow bend right there. If that's kind of hidden with fat and belly, he's probably kind of old. I sympathize with that statement. And I remember looking at this deer going, he looks young. And then my second thought was I looked at his antlers and I was like, what in the name of Jesus is going on there? Because he had stuff just going everywhere. This wild, wild rack. And as I'm sitting there with my phone in hand looking for coots and I see this deer, very quickly I decide I'm going to pass him. He's young. I want to see what in the world his rack's going to do next year because he looked to be non-typical. He had points coming out everywhere. Wasn't real big, but points coming out everywhere. But he's young. I'm going to pass him. I can't wait to see what he looks like next year. I hope he survives muzzleloading season. I hope he survives rifle season. I hope he survives bow season. And that was the principle that I was going to operate off of. It's how I typically operate. Pass young deer. And then he took a few steps. And I realized, oh, the reason his rack's all messed up is because he's injured. He couldn't put any weight on one of his front legs, can't remember which one, couldn't put any weight on it. It wouldn't bend at all. He just kind of tripod hopped on the front and he could barely get around. And I start looking and I kind of go, you know, he honestly looks like maybe he's older than what I think he is. He's just emaciated. He's not getting enough nutrients. Like this dude had likely been hit by a car. So my initial thought was not going to kill him. He's young. This is my operating principle. This is how I default operate. And then this higher thing comes in real quick and is like, I know you don't want to burn a buck tag on this thing, but he's probably going to starve to death this winter. And if he doesn't starve to death, he's going to get chased down by a pack of coyotes and they're going to eat him alive, right? There's a better way. And so in that moment, some of you who were peeking during prayer time got the spoiler alert, but I got my bow, drew back, and let an arrow fly, very quick, ethical kill. And I took the deer up to the house later on, and this is what his rack looked like. And as and somebody's laughing like, hey, listen, okay, some of us are weird shape. Cut us some slack, all right? But I took him up to the house and processed him myself, and I remember as I tore apart the front shoulder, I mean, his ankle joint, I don't know if it's actually called an ankle on deer, I'm not sure, but it wouldn't bend at all. His front shoulder wouldn't really move much at all. That whole front side of his body had kind of atrophied. And I had heard that actually when deer get an injury on their right side, that oftentimes the opposite side antler will come in really weird. Or if they get injured on their left side, oftentimes the other side of the rack on the right side will come in really weird. And so here's the thing. A lot of times in life, we have what we call, I'm going to call it this morning, our default operating principle. This is how we normally do things, right? And then sometimes things will come in and we'll challenge that. Things that are more important, a higher calling, maybe a different way of doing things that supersedes how we normally would operate. You follow? I normally pass younger bucks. And I definitely normally don't want to waste a buck tag on something that looks as ridiculous as this that you can't hang on a wall and be proud of. This is like you hide it in the garage, right? But man, that day something higher came in, something more important. Hey, you don't want this animal to suffer. You don't want it to needlessly suffer. You can burn a tag. You can put this thing out of its misery. A lot of times in life we face situations like this where we want to fall back on how we normally default operate, and Jesus is going to call us to something a little bit higher, right? Hey, this is how you normally would respond or react in the situation, but I'm going to challenge you to do something a little bit different. It's a higher calling, it's a higher challenge, and that's really what Jesus has been doing with these statements. Remember, there's 6 of them in the Sermon on the Mount. You have heard that it was said, but I say to you. You have heard that it was said, but I say to you. Today is probably the best example of that principle of how you normally want to operate. Let me give you something higher, because today he's going to say to them, hey, you have heard that it was said, and this is how your entire culture operates, and it's acceptable. It's acceptable to retaliate and exact revenge. It's acceptable in your culture that when someone wrongs you, you go tit for tat. That if they hurt you, you hurt them back +1. And that's how your culture operates. That's how your entire nation of people, my people, operate. But I say to you, I'm going to give you a higher calling here. I'm going to call you to do things a little bit different than all the other people. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. But remember, I said this a few weeks ago, and remember, I stole this from a commentary by one of the professors I studied under. His name is Mark Moore, and Vance has quoted me every week. This is not a quote from me, okay? That's plagiarism. But God cares more about your relationships, you having right relationships with people, than he does about your religious ritual. And today is a passage that's called Eye for an Eye. And literally today he's going to say, I need you to do things differently than how you normally want to operate for the sake of your relationships. So here's what I want to do. Read it. I'm probably going to sit down. I'm not feeling super great today, so I'm going to sit down because I'm old and broke down. But I want to read it. And I want to process through this and talk about it a little bit, because he's essentially going to give them this higher. You've heard that it was said, let me give you this higher calling. He's going to give you a couple of examples. And those examples are not going to make sense. And so we're going to have to talk about what was going on in their day and age contextually that would lead Jesus to say these things. So let me read it real quick. This is Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 42. We're going to read it twice. Okay, it's never a bad thing to hear things twice. Here we go. You have heard that it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. This is their default operating principle. But I tell you, don't resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Let me read it again. He's going to say, you've heard that it was said, but I say to you, then give them 4 examples of how this plays out. Ready? You've heard that it was said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, give him your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Let me tell you what's going on in this culture, in the Jewish nation, God's people that Jesus is addressing here. They had adopted some teachings from their religious leaders centuries and centuries before Jesus comes along, where revenge was acceptable. Getting people back was acceptable. If someone strikes you, you strike them back. And maybe you strike them back twice. If someone punches you lightly, you send a haymaker on the other side of their face, right? They kick you in the shins, you kick them in both shins. You get what I'm saying? They operated with this culture that everything was tit for tat, revenge-based. And it even led into legally how they settled disputes, right? If someone has wronged you financially, or they wronged you when it comes to your material possessions, you take them to court, and you don't just try to get back what was lost, you try to get back what was lost plus some. And this is how their culture operated. And it was totally acceptable and normal, right? And so Jesus comes in and says, hey, your people have said to you, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Your people have taught you that it's totally appropriate when someone offends you or hurts you, that you can respond in like plus a little bit. And I'm going to stop right there. We struggle with this. I struggle with this. I'm not an outwardly revenge kind of person. Like if you wrong me, I'm not going to outwardly. It's not like you walk in the office and you hurt my feelings and I'm like about to catch these hands. You know, that's not how I will operate. But I'll tell you right now, I will beat you down 1,000,000 times in my head and my heart and you'll never know it. I will exact revenge relationally on you and cut myself off from you and you will never know it. And I have no issue doing this because remember, like a couple weeks ago, I feel really good when I don't, blow up in anger and rage outwardly. It makes me feel good because I'm better than those other people that do. But I don't ever want to talk about how on the inside I might as well be doing the exact same thing, because on the inside, I'm cutting myself off from you relationally, right? And so you're sitting out here, and some of you, if you're like me, and you're immature, and you're sitting here and go, okay, the bald guy's talking about getting revenge on people. I'm not like that. I don't ever want to throw hands. I don't ever want to sue people. It's so much deeper than that. You know, you can literally exact revenge relationally, and that person will never know about it. You could put up such hard boundaries and walls between yourself and that other person that you want nothing to do with them, and they have no idea. And all of this is in the same arena. Jesus is addressing this stuff because at the end of the day, remember, he cares so much about us having right relationships, okay? So what he's going to say to them is, you know what? I'm challenging you to think outside of your normal way of operating. He's using in this passage hyperbole. And I talked to one of you when I preached 2 weeks ago and I said that Jesus was using hyperbole. Hyperbole means to say above, to speak above. He's going to say some exaggerated statements. And I was having a conversation with one of you a couple weeks back, and I can't remember who it was basically saying, yeah, when you say Jesus is using hyperbole, that doesn't really settle well with a lot of people. And I get that. But you know what? If you don't believe that Jesus never used hyperbole, why are you walking around with both hands and both eyes? Because like I said 2 weeks ago, if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. And honestly, in our day and age, if you take Jesus literally at every word that he says, there should be a bunch of eyeballless men walking around, because I guarantee you, your eyes have caused you to sin more than 2 times, okay? But he's using hyperbole, right? He's saying these exaggerated statements. But remember, his goal is not to get us to go as extreme as being like, if somebody sues me for my shirt, I'm stripping all my clothes off and giving them to them and walking away naked. That's weird, okay? It's not necessarily what he really wants you to do. What he really wants you to do, though, is stop and think. You want to react out of anger and frustration and exact revenge and get those people back, whether that be outwardly, physically, materially. But I'm saying to you, think with a different part of your brain. And instead of reacting with revenge and tit for tat, I want you to respond relationally. What can you do in this moment where either you've hurt and offended someone or they've hurt and offended you? How can you handle this in this moment to maintain that relationship? And to get us to think about that, to get them to think about that, he gave them a few examples. Let's talk about it. First one, he says, is anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. Now, number one, why is he saying right? You've got to understand, in Jewish culture, coming to blows was kind of common. That's kind of one of the ways they settled things, right? Is they let's throw fists and let's sort this out, right? And so striking someone, slapping someone would have been a common way of retaliating against them if they've offended you. But you notice Jesus says you're slapping them on the right cheek. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, okay, real quick, come up here, Dave. I'm sorry, I didn't even tell him he was going to do this. But you're preaching, I'm out. I'm kidding. All right, so which one is your right cheek? So now I could potentially do a backhanded thing. That's not how they would have done this. I would typically use what hand to strike him? Left hand. Such a genius. Give it up for David. He's going to go sit down. Yes, all right. See, I needed him just for that. You'd have to use your left hand to strike someone on the right cheek. And in this day and age, that is a curse and an offense. It would be better for you to strike them on the left cheek with your right hand. This is a deeper level of offense. And why? Why was it a deeper level of offense to strike someone on the right cheek with your left hand than the left cheek with your right hand? And it has everything to do with the bathroom. Because remember, toilet paper wasn't invented until 1857. And prior to that, humans used, and then they would wash, and I don't even know when soap came in, but I'm pretty sure they probably never got it completely clean. And so I went to India on my first mission trip ever, right out of high school, and we get to India, and Tommy Bittner was our team leader, and he's like telling us all, hey, here's some things you don't do. And I remember he was like, don't offer to shake hands with someone with your left hand. And so of course me, hey, you got to explain that one. Like I don't get it. It's literally you're cursing them. It may come to blows. It's like I despise you, so I'm going to shake with my left hand. What a wild time to be a left-handed person. I'm just saying. But you're cursing them to shake with your left hand. And so what Jesus is saying is someone strikes you in the most shameful, hurtful, condemning way possible, touching you on the right side of your face with the duty hand. If they go that extreme, don't retaliate. Don't do what you naturally want to do, which is I've been hurt and offended, and I'm going to go eye for eye, tooth for tooth, and I'm going to rage even more, and I'm going to hit him on the right cheek twice with my left hand. Or I'm going to I don't know, hit them all over their body with the left hand, or it's going to come to blows and I'm going to completely beat them down. He's saying, don't. There's a different way. There's a better way. There's a way that you can potentially handle this that will save that relationship. And if someone strikes you on the right cheek with the dirty hand, you know what you should do? Turn to them the other one. Hey, hit me on this one too, over here. Protecting that relationship. Here's a second example. Verse 39. He says, and if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. Okay, Jewish men typically would wear a shirt, a tunic, an undergarment kind of a thing. And then outside of that, they would wear this kind of like long flowing robe coat thing. Okay, and when you read this, you're like, this makes zero sense. But you got to understand the way their legal system worked. If they went to their local court, I talked about this a couple weeks ago, their local ruling council of elders, there'd be a handful of elders that would be appointed to oversee local disputes. And if they went to that local court, and they walked in, both of the people, if one of them suing one and the other one suing them back or whatever, would be expected to surrender their shirts to the court. And it was a way to keep them to behave, because, hey, if you don't behave in the court, we keep your shirt and you walk away naked and everybody shames you. It was also a way to make a retribution. If I go to court and I'm being sued because I wronged someone, I surrender my shirt. And basically they say, oh, Matt, you owe this other guy $10 for how you wronged him. And I'm like, I don't have $10. Well, you're going to walk away naked with just your coat and he's going to keep your shirt. And this is how they operated oftentimes. And what Jesus is saying, hey, you know what? If anyone is suing you and they're trying to take your undershirt, how about instead of even going to court and letting them take that legally, why don't you just go ahead and give it to them? And why don't you give them your outer robe as well? Go above and beyond, right? And what he's essentially saying is your natural instincts as a Jewish person in this day and age is when someone's going to sue you, you're going to go to court and you're going to sue them back and you guys are going to litigate it and you're going to, I don't even know if that's the real word, and you're going to argue it out and all of those things. I find it funny right now that the entire country, social media, is completely enamored with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case. We're just over here just drooling right here like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Did you hear that she went to the bathroom on the bed and everybody thinks she's lying? We're just like chomping at the bit. And Jesus is basically saying, don't be that ridiculous. If you've wronged someone and they're saying, I want your shirt, man, give them your coat too. Don't even let it go to court. How about you pay them back and go above and beyond what you even think you should have to do to save that relationship? Because again, it's all about the relationship. Go above and beyond. Here's his third example. You ready? And this one's another one that if you don't really know what he's talking about, you're not going to really understand. But he says, if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. This is where we get our statement, going the extra mile, right? Can we make it like go the extra 10 feet? Because I'm getting old, okay? I'm just saying. But essentially in their culture, the Roman Empire was in control of the entire known world, right? They literally controlled everything. And the way they controlled everything was they would leave stations of Roman soldiers all throughout their empire to keep the peace and keep the power of Rome, lording over the people, right? So there were soldiers all over the place. And in the Roman Empire, they were required to serve in the Roman military as young men. And so they're soldiers all over the place. And it was perfectly legally allowed for a Roman soldier, if he's traveling along, to just pluck someone from the street or pluck someone from the crowd and be like, hey, carry my stuff. They literally did this regularly. Hey, I don't want to carry my shield, my sword, my pack. I'm tired. So I'm going to make this peasant right here carry my stuff for the next mile, and then I'll pick someone else, right? And it's something that really annoyed the Jews because men, remember, they want freedom. They want control of their own country. And these Romans are lording over us, right? And now this Roman soldier's making me carry his stupid stuff. When he's not looking, I'm going to spit in his helmet, right? Like, it frustrated them to no end. And what does Jesus say? Hey, you know what? If you're chilling one day, maybe you're working in your field, you're at the market, you're selling your goods, and a Roman soldier comes up and is like, hey, you, carry my stuff. How about instead of arguing or wanting to retaliate or carrying it all disgruntledly and spitting in his helmet when he's not looking, like, how about instead of all that, you carry it for him, not just 1 mile, go 2 miles. Go above and beyond, right? Because the point, again, remember, is not eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, not retaliation. The point is to protect relationships. His last example is where he essentially says, this one probably hits a little closer to home with a lot of what we deal with around here, but in our day and age, but give to the one who asks you and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Give to the one who asks you and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. In Jewish culture, Jesus' people in this day and age, they were expected to take care of their fellow Jew. Love your neighbors, hate your enemies, but love your neighbors, take care of the Jews. To the point that if a Jew is rolling into a town, right, and he needs this place to stay that's safe and secure for the night, and no one in that town offers him at least their stable. Does this sound familiar? Sounds like a Christmas story? If no one in that town is able to offer them a place to stay that gives them security and safety, that in the morning when they leave that town, they are to shake the dust off their sandals on that town, kicking them, and they're cursed. That whole town is cursed. All the Jews there are cursed by God, and they're known amongst their people for not taking care of their fellow brother, their fellow sister, their fellow Israelite, right? And they were expected to. But here's the thing. A lot of these Jews, if they did it disgruntledly. Like, this random Yahoo showed up to our town, or random Yahoo, and they need a place to stay, and they need some food, and I'm going to do it, but And they even had tried to get around it in certain ways. Vance last week talked about oaths a little bit in the midst of divorce, but that's the passage right before is about oaths. Jews would go to great lengths to take these huge oaths and dedicate all of their wealth and finances to the temple, or all of their wealth and finances to their local synagogue. I pledge it to them, right? But in the meantime, it's going to be mine, and I'm going to use it to live. But on the day that I die, they get all of it, right? They would take these elaborate oaths, making them sound super religious. But part of their whole goal was, I want to keep mine. So somebody comes and is like, hey, Tibbet, I need $100. I could be like, well, I've already pledged every penny till the day I die to Prairie Grove Christian Church, and I cannot help you because it is not mine money. As I sit there and eat my ice cream at Dairy Queen. It's not even mine, right? It actually belongs to God, so I can't help you. They would take these elaborate oaths to avoid having to take care of each other. And even if they had to take care of each other, they would do it disgruntledly. And Jesus is saying, and now Jesus is assuming, I'm not getting into the whole, like, do they really need that money? That person that you saw get out of their Escalade and walk over the corner with their sign. I'm not even going to get into all of that. Jesus, I think, is assuming that this need is valid, okay? And he's saying if somebody needs something from you, whether it's a little bit of financial help, they need something that they need to borrow from you to make their life easier, you know what? Don't even turn them down. Give it to them. How about you stop taking your silly oaths and prevent you from having to help anybody? You know what? Just help that person out. But again, the whole point is protecting relationships. Protecting relationships. Their culture operated on this lower default system where basically if someone hurts you or wrongs you, if someone offends you, you are allowed and it's even acceptable to retaliate against them plus a little bit. If it's physical, you come at them a little bit harder. If it's financial, you demand the money that they owe you plus a little bit. Like it was totally acceptable. And Jesus is saying, this is how you operate and it's wrecking your relationships. I want to challenge and call you to think outside that box. Is there potentially a better way? Is there potentially a different way that could literally save your relationships with other people? So let's translate this a little bit, and I'm going to struggle with this a little bit because this is an area that I, again, don't do well in. But let's translate this to modern days and times, to you and I, 2022 PGAR, okay? What does that look like? I think the first thing it looks like is don't escalate things. And here's what I mean. The Jews, remember, if they're offended and hurt, they want to take it to the next level. You know what I mean? And I think as people, we've got to understand that Jesus is calling us a little bit, don't escalate things. Keep the molehill a molehill. Let it be little. And it doesn't matter if it's an outward, physically, financial thing that you've been wronged or hurt, or an inward relation thing that you've been wronged or hurt. Jesus is essentially saying, hey, your way of operating is to escalate every conflict to the next level to make yourself look super hurt and super offended and to make yourself look right and just in how you respond. And Jesus is saying, don't do that thing. Don't escalate it. Keep the molehill a molehill. Don't turn the molehill into a mountain so that you can make yourself look better. How about you keep the molehill a molehill? So what does this look like? Many years ago, there was a situation my wife was a part of here at the church, a little bit of some drama and some gossip. I mean, that never happens anywhere in the church ever, but that's why I say many years ago, we're beyond this, right? But there's a little bit of a situation, and I remember she was counseling with Linda, Vance's wife Linda. She's amazing. Linda's super wise. And in the midst of that, Linda, my wife and a few friends were like, man, we don't know what to do. We want to repair these things. We want this to, go away. We want this person to feel comfortable being back. And Linda gave them this sage old advice, and I love this. Hey, stop talking about it. Stop talking about it. Stop talking about it with each other. Stop talking about it with everybody else. Stop talking about it. Because a lot of times what we do is when we've been hurt or offended or someone's hurt or offended, and I'm guilty of this too, we want to flap the gums about it. You know what I mean? Did you hear what so-and-so did? They got struck in the face with a poopy hand. Like, oh my gosh, they're so hurt, and then we just want to run our mouths about it. And essentially what happens is this offense that may have been a molehill, it may have been a little bit bigger, I don't know, it tends to kind of grow. I'm thinking of that old Veggie tale about the rumor weed. If you guys remember, any of you parents remember this? I see if you had, now Jennifer's over nodding. It's like the more we talk about this little tiny fire, we're just throwing gas on it, throwing fuel on it. Oh, so-and-so did this to so-and-so, or so-and-so did this to me, and I just don't ever know what to do. Well, how about you just stop talking about it and go talk to them? I don't think you hear me. I just don't know what I need to do about it. How about you shut up about it and go talk to them? I just don't see any way that we could ever repair this for the hurt and rough. How about you stop talking about it and go talk to them? 2 weeks ago, Jesus was talking a little bit about anger, and that was part of a little bit of what he was thinking, and I was thinking, it's like, man, you know what? If your brother and sister has offended you or hurt you, you've offended or hurt them, you know what, and you're here worshiping, put it down, go talk to them. Go talk to them. One of the best ways that we can leave molehills, and save that relationship from being fractured, right? Because of some small offense or some small wrong or some big offense or some big wrong, is to stop talking to anyone else about it other than the person that we have that beef with. Don't let it escalate. Don't let the fire grow. Stop throwing fuel on it. So stop talking about it and go talk to them and try to sort it out, right? That's the first thing. The second thing I want to say, and I probably should have started with this one. It'd make a lot more sense. But the second thing I want to say is don't trust your emotions. Full stop. Let me just let that linger for a little bit. Don't trust your emotions. Emotions are really fickle. I'm going to tell you, this is an illustration from this weekend. We're having issues with our well, so we pretty much we have a pump that pumps water into our well tank. It holds 1,000 gallons, and then we have a smaller pump that pumps that and pressurizes the house, and it goes through our filtration system. And somebody made a mistake and tried to top off our Walmart swimming pool and used all of our water, and we haven't had rain really well in a couple weeks, so we had no water in our well, right? And so I spent Friday evening about 4.5, 5 hours hauling a load of water, and I spent all day yesterday hauling water to fill our tank so that we could have water to drink and wash and go to the bathroom and all that stuff, right? And I'm telling you, I was on my way with my last load of water. I told my wife this last night, and I laughed about it. I'm on my way home. I'm so tired. I'm so annoyed. I literally want to put 20 cans of tannerite in my well house and just shoot it from afar. And I'm so frustrated. And I'm coming home, and that song that's buy dirt, find when you can live. I'm you know what I want right now? It's not dirt. I want a duplex in Farmington on city water. That's what I want right now, right? Because I hate this. I hate our land. I hate living in the middle of nowhere. I hate our well. And then I go to bed. And I wake up and I go, we haven't had any well issues for 2 years. I should be thankful. Man, don't trust your emotions. Your emotions are liars. Sometimes they can steer you in the right way or, trust your gut and instincts. But most of the time when there's conflict there, your emotions will steer you wrong so often. Don't trust your emotions. Emotions are fickle. Focus on the facts. Because what happens a lot of times when somebody wrongs us, right, it's a molehill. And the more we talk to other people about it, the more we interact with other people about it, we begin putting on those lenses I talk about almost every time I preach. Those lenses, right? Where we're looking at everything skewed, and we're looking at the situation skewed, and we're looking at that person skewed. And next thing you know, it's everything that person says, we're looking through the lens of hatred and anger and frustration. Can you believe her? How dare she post that on Facebook? She's aiming this at me. He's talking about me. And it's literally I bet $20 they're not talking about you, right? But you've taken that molehill and you've let it escalate and grow and grow and grow. You let your emotions put these false lenses on, right? And now, this person hates me and everything they do is trying to get back at me, blah. And the moral of the story is, if we just take our emotions and go, okay, I'm really hurt by this. Okay, that's a fact. Let's deal with this situation quickly and not let it escalate. Because I can't trust myself. I can't trust myself to not let this wildfire, this little small fire, grow super big and wreck relationships around me. I can't trust myself. So I'm not going to escalate it. I'm going to deal with the facts and not always trust my emotions, right? Here's the last thing I want to say. Deal with it yesterday. Deal with it yesterday. That's what Jesus said 2 weeks ago when he was talking about anger and your brother, your sister's got something wrong with you. And he says, hey, you're worshiping, you're offering this gift at the altar, man. Put it down and leave and go deal with it. And I would say to you, the right time to deal with conflict, the right time to deal with somebody who's hurt you, who's wronged you, the right time to deal with it was yesterday. The sooner the better. Because the more you put it off, the more it can escalate in your mind. The more you put it off, the more false evidence you can compile against them and how they hate you and they're completely against you. The more you put it off, the more likely you are to run your gums with a bunch of people that aren't even connected to that situation. Slandering and gossiping. I love this. The word gossip in Scripture is epithurismo. Everybody say epithurismo. Just kidding. Don't do that. Psithurismo, excuse me. Psithurismo starts with the Greek letter psi. Psithurismo. Scientifically, do you know what that is? It's the noise the wind makes as it blows through the leaves of the trees. If you look up psithurismo, it's literally the scientific term for the wind, the noise the wind makes when it blows through the leaves. You know what it is? And then when it's all said and done, guess what? Nothing was solved. Just a whole lot of useless noise. And the longer we let it go, we don't deal with it, the more potentiality for gossip and slander, the more potentiality for this thing to escalate. All right? So the bottom line is this, and this is what Jesus is calling us to today. You ready? When you're hurt, when you're offended, when you've been wronged, how you naturally want to respond in that situation might not be what's best. Even though you may be justified in your hurt and your anger, it might not be what's best. And that he's calling you to a higher way of responding, not reacting emotionally, but responding. Have you ever thought about this? Jesus is literally talking about the science of how your brain works. Did you know that your emotional responses come from a completely different part of your brain than your logically thought out cognitive responses? This is why teenagers, if you're a teenager in here, you know I love you. That's why they make really impulsive, dumb decisions. Because that part of their brain that helps them think cognitively and logically isn't really even developed enough yet to process long-term consequences, to process making wise cognitive decisions in this moment. And so what Jesus is saying, in this moment when you've been hurt and you've been offended and you've been wrong and your default way of operating is to respond like this, tit for tat, eye for an eye, set that down. There's a better way that saves and protects relationships. There's a better way. And I'll finish with this. What if God responded to us according to how we've wronged him? Think about that. How many relationships do you have in your life with people that you want nothing to do with them? You've cut them off, you've written them off because they hurt you and they offended you. Or you encountered some conflict that didn't get sorted out and you have nothing to do with those people. Think about that. I bet everyone in here right now is thinking of a name of a person, right? And you're treating that person according to how they've hurt and offended you or wronged you. And what I would say to you is this: what if God treated us that way, according to our offenses and wrongs against him? We would all be damned to literal hell forever. But God, because of his love, Romans 5:8 says that while we were still sinners, stop there, while we were still offending him, while we were still hurting our relationship with him through our sinful actions and disobedience, while we were still running around like a bunch of jackwagon idiots in our spiritual lives, when we were so far from him, hurting him, wronging him, offending him, what did he do? Christ died for us. So in your relationships, do the same. Don't tit for tat. Don't eye for eye. Don't tooth for tooth. Treat people the way God has treated you. Not according to their offenses, but according to the love of Jesus. Let me pray. Father, I prayed this 2 weeks ago, and here we are kind of again preaching along the same lines. It might have been 3 weeks, but about relationships and anger and when we've been wronged or murder and hating someone in our heart and all of this. At the end of the day, it's just so abundantly clear in this sermon that you preached, the Sermon on the Mount, so many years ago. Relationships are huge. And you desperately, desperately want us to live our lives in such a way that we put relationships on the forefront. Protect them at all costs. In the same way that you protected our relationship with you at all costs, not even sparing your own son. So help us to do the same. I pray that when people leave today, if there's a person in their mind and heart that they've treated according to their offenses, that they'll seek that person out and they'll repair that relationship. Even if it means they have to bear some of the sin and some of the wrong and some of the hurt that's been done, just to save that relationship. Help us to be like Jesus and do that. Pray all these things in Christ's name. Amen.
People come together, strangers, neighbors, our blood is one. Children of generations, of every nation, of kingdom come. So don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. And fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, and be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Jesus, our redemption, our salvation is in His blood. In Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, His kingdom come. So don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Whoa, whoa. We're going to sing this out, church. We're going to start out singing real low and real quiet. And then we're going to turn it back around and we're going to get loud and we're going to sing proudly to our Lord. Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Whoa, whoa, whoa. One more time, guys. Swing wide. Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Sing us out, church. Jesus, our redemption, our salvation is in his blood. Yes, it is. Sing. Jesus, light of heaven, friends forever, his kingdom come. Thanks for singing, church.